Know the top stories of the day. Understand the issues that matter. This is Manila Bulletin News on Web. Your quick rundown of top news in the country and around the world. Manila Bulletin, celebrating 120 years of timely stories and timeless truths. Be fully informed. Hi, I'm Barbie Atienza. This is MB Now, and here are your news on web.
President Rodrigo Roa Duterte has approved the grant of 1,000 worth of aid for 22.9 million Filipinos displaced by the reimposition of enhanced community quarantine in Metro Manila, Rizal, Bulacan, Cavite, and Laguna. Senator Christopher Bongo on his Facebook account showed President Duterte signing on Monday night, March 29, an order authorizing the release of funds for the provision of aid to individuals affected by the one-week implementation of the EZQ. Budget Secretary Wendell Avisado explained, however, that the assistance will be given in kind as what was recommended earlier. Under the Department of Budget and Management proposed supplemental amelioration program, 1,000 worth of aid will be given to each affected individuals but not more than 4,000 per family. Avisado said the funds for the supplemental amelioration amounting to about 23 billion will be sourced for the unused allocation under the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act or Bayanihan 2, which gave the President the authority to realign unused government funds for COVID-19 response. The law's validity was extended until June 30 this year. The President said he wants the supplemental amelioration rolled out within the first week of April.
Yung mga na diskarel sa finances nila, na ano kayo sa pera, naghirap kayo kasi hindi makalabas, magdasal lang kayo. We will give you the ayuda. Ayuda is assistance help.
President Duterte asked for the public's patience and understanding amid the slow coronavirus vaccine rollout in the country, saying the government is doing its best to get the vaccines. Duterte made the statement as the country logged a record high of 10,016 new COVID-19 cases on Monday, bringing the total number of infections to 731,894. In his taped weekly address, President Duterte explained that there was an ongoing worldwide tension regarding the COVID-19 vaccine that hinders the Philippines from getting vaccines. He asked the people to stretch their patience as the government strives to procure more shots, especially since the Philippines is not a vaccine-producing country. The president admitted that the latest move to place the Greater Manila area under the Enhanced Community Quarantine or ECQ meant that the country is back to zero, but said he would be the last person to make Filipinos suffer.
No, we are really doing our very best, the best of our best na talent, getting the vaccine from anywhere na para minus-minus yung hawaan. Na intindihin ninyo itong mabuti mga kababayan ko. Pag hindi ito na ano natin, we have to understand government, allow a certain bigyan mo kami konting medyo stretch your patience and understanding. We're doing our best. We are not a vaccine-producing country. Wala tayong expertise, wala tayong knowledge, medical, scientific knowledge. So naghihintay tayo.
President Rodrigo Roa Duterte has allowed the private sector to bring in coronavirus disease vaccines in the country at will, as he recognized the very limited number of shots that the government is able to import. Duterte made the statement after he welcomed the arrival of the 1 million coronavac doses on Monday, the first tranche of the government-procured vaccines. According to the president, the private sector wants to purchase vaccines for the employees because they want the economy opened. The private sector has asked the government to allow it to directly procure COVID-19 vaccines from pharmaceutical firms without restrictions or conditions. Malacanang had explained that the companies have always been allowed to buy vaccines, but it had to be done through a tripartite agreement with the national government so it can take responsibility for side effects. Presidential spokesman Harry Roque said that if private firms will insist on buying vaccines directly from pharmaceutical firms, they should not blame the government if anything goes wrong. According to Roque, no pharmaceutical firm will sell vaccines without an intervention of the government because their vaccines are only authorized for emergency use and not commercial commercial use. The COVID-19 program vaccination states that the manufacturers will not be held liable for side effects as long as there's no willful neglect or gross negligence on their part.
I have ordered Secretary Galvez to sign any and all documents that would allow the private sector to import at will. Baski ilan ang gusto nilang ipasok. Okay sa akin. Tayong gobyerno, ito lang ang nakuha natin, ito lang rin ang binigay. Well, of course, hindi natin masabi na mas marami ang mabili ng private sector. But dito sa Pilipinas, maraming mga negosyante na gustong bumili kasi ibigay nila sa kanilang mga trabahante. You know what is the reason? Do you know the reason why? So that the economy can be opened.
Here is a roundup of news in and around Metro Manila. Let's watch this report.
Manila Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Domagoso has announced that the city government will begin vaccinating residents with comorbidities against COVID-19 on Wednesday, March 31. Domagoso said residents of the city aged 18 to 59 years old with pre-existing medical conditions will receive the COVID-19 vaccine made by Chinese biopharmaceutical company Sinovac. Those who wish to be inoculated must bring a medical certificate, prescriptions, or hospital records to prove that they have pre-existing medical conditions. Meanwhile, Domagoso said that frontline health workers who received their first dose of Sinovac vaccine on March 2, the first day of the city's vaccine rollout, are due for their second dose today, March 30. Domagoso added that this is a historic event because the health workers will be among the first to complete their vaccine schedule in the Philippines. Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte has tested positive for the coronavirus disease for the second time. Belmonte said she is experiencing mild symptoms and is currently quarantined at Hope Community Care Facility in Quezon City. But despite being under quarantine, Belmonte said that she will still perform all her executive functions and duties. Belmonte first contracted the disease in July 2020 but recovered after several weeks. Residents affected by the week-long Enhanced Community Quarantine or ECQ in the National Capital Region Plus or NCR Plus bubble will receive in-kind assistance from their respective local government units, Parañaque Mayor Edwin Olivares said on Tuesday. Olivares, who is also the chairman of the Metro Manila Council, said all Metro mayors have initially discussed that they will be distributing in-kind aid to their constituents. The mayor said the aid package will include rice, canned goods, and noodles.
Now let's take a look at the latest news in other parts of the country. Here are the details.
Non-essential travel of Pangasinenses to the National Capital Region, provinces of Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal, as well as the entry of persons from these areas to Pangasinan are now prohibited. In an executive order issued on Monday, March 29, Governor Amadeo Espino III said this is in line with the directive of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases. However, essential travels by frontline services, government personnel, emergency, humanitarian causes, and movement of cargo shall remain unhampered. Almost 28% of healthcare workers in the Western Visayas region have received their first dose of vaccine against coronavirus disease. This percentage represents 26,442 healthcare workers out of the 94,770 eligible healthcare workers in the region. These healthcare workers were administered with the Chinese-made Sinovac and British-made AstraZeneca. Meanwhile, an additional 7,200 vials of Sinovac vaccine arrived Tuesday, March 30. As a containment measure against the coronavirus disease, Mayor Sara Duterte has ordered the closure of beaches, beach resorts, and inland water resorts in Davao City from April 1 to 4. Mayor Sara cited incidents involving beachgoers violating the General Community Quarantine or GCQ, which even led to the drowning of several minors. She also suggested to Davaoenos to stay at home and not in the beach resorts as it might be the reason to get infected with the virus.
And now the updates from around the world. Here is that report.
COVID-19 probably passed to humans from a bat via an intermediary animal, an international expert mission to China concluded in a report seen by AFP Monday, while all but ruling out a laboratory leak. But the report drafted by the World Health Organization's appointed international expert and their Chinese counterparts offers no definitive answers on how the new coronavirus jumped to humans. COVID-19 has killed more than 2.7 million people worldwide in the 15 months since it emerged, forcing governments around the world to introduce restrictions that have battered the global economy. Ahead of a meeting with world leaders, UN Chief Antonio Guterres called for more debt relief for poorest countries struggling with economic fallout from the pandemic. Japan is set to launch a digital vaccine passport for the coronavirus disease, according to Nikkei. The country will issue digital health certificates to citizens who have been vaccinated against the coronavirus, joining China, the EU, and other countries in a bid to reopen international travel. The certificate will be available through a mobile app and will also be linked to a new system that tracks the progress of Japan's vaccination program. This will allow authorities to quickly verify whether the carriers have been fully vaccinated or have tested negative when boarding a plane or checking into a hotel. The app is also focused on the foreigners who are staying in Japan who want to return to their home countries. A campaign group for bereaved families starts almost 150,000 hand-drawn hearts on a wall opposite Britain's Houses of Parliament as a memorial to victims of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was organized by the group COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice UK, which has called for a public inquiry into government's handling of the pandemic. Labour leader Keir Starmer also came to see the hearts and said it was a close reminder to all of us that we must express our voices on behalf of those who have lost someone.
And the latest in showbiz, let's watch this.
K-pop princess IU and K-pop girl group Blackpink member Rosé copped the first 2 places in the weekly physical album chart in South Korea. IU released her 5th studio album Lilac on March 25, while Rosé dropped her debut single album R on March 12. According to Korea's Hanteo chart, Lilac grabbed first place on the weekly physical album chart from March 22 to March 28 with sales of 241,479 copies. Rosé's R placed second on the weekly chart with 93,646 copies sold. R also achieved the highest first-week sales among albums released in 2021 to date. OPM icon Claire Dela Fuente passed away due to cardiac arrest this morning, March 30. She was 62. De La Fuente's passing was confirmed by composer-producer Jonathan Manalo, who is close to De La Fuente's family. De La Fuente is the popular singer behind the immortal OPM songs Sayang, Nakaw na Pag-ibig, and Minsan Minsan in the 1980s. She was discovered by noted composer George Canseco when she joined the singing contest at the age of 15. Filipino cosmetics brand Ever Bilena recently hosted its first ever virtual event to reaffirm its ode to beauty in celebration of its 38th year in the business. The said virtual retro-styled event was filled with interactive and fun activities and exciting announcements as the brand's way of expressing thanks to customers who have supported and patronized their products since the 1980s. Present during the virtual celebration were Ever Bilena executives, including President and CEO Joseldo C., COO Siliman C., Chief Sales and Marketing Officer Denise C. Muñez, and Marketing Manager Olive Padilla, as well as Ever Bilena, Careline, and Blackwater celebrity endorsers Loisa Andalio, Andrea Brillantes, Maris Racal, Christian Bautista, Raver Cruz, and Albert Nicolas.
I'd like to see you all again very soon after this pandemic, and hopefully by 39th year, we'll have the real celebration with all of you.
In its past decades, Ever Bilena has expanded its roster of brands including Careline, Spotlight, Blackwater, Ever Organics, Ara Colors, Hello Glow, and Blue Star to bring cosmetics and home care products closer and more accessible to Filipinos.
Here are the latest from Manila Bulletin's sports section. Let's watch this.
Just like other athletes preparing for tournaments this year, Gilas Pilipinas will likewise take a break from its training camp inside Inspire Sports Academy in Calamba, Laguna. This after the Philippine Sports Commission advised the teams through the different National Sports Association to take a break in light of the government-imposed enhanced community quarantine on March 29 to April 4 due to the spike of COVID-19 cases in the country. The national men's basketball team pool is preparing for the third and last window of the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers and the FIBA Olympic qualifying tournament in June. Gilas resumed its training camp last March 15 with a total of 27 players and coaches.
And those are the news on web today, March 30, 2021. For more news and details, get your copy of the Manila Bulletin newspaper tomorrow, or you can log on to www.mb.com.ph. You may also subscribe to our newsletter through the link on this video's caption to have the day's latest news delivered to your inbox. I am Barbie Atienza for Manila Bulletin. Join us again tomorrow. This has been MB Now. Be fully informed.